So a third U.S. aircraft carrier now sailing towards the Middle East, the USS George H.W. Bush, taking the longer route.
Two ultimatums today collide over the world's most dangerous waters.
2:13 a.m., outskirts of Tehran. A night shift security officer is watching camera feeds ripple across a dim concrete control room. In 9 minutes, everything he understands about hardened leadership protection will be shattered. Above him, engines are already moving through the dark. This is how decapitation warfare begins. The city is quiet at first. Highway lights burn amber through the haze. Apartment blocks sit still beneath the mountains. Farther north, beyond the civilian traffic, beyond the checkpoints, beyond the visible military compounds everyone knows, sits the kind of sight governments never acknowledge directly. Buried under layers of reinforced concrete, blast doors, fiber optic redundancies, filtered air systems, and armed internal security. And the bunker is designed for one purpose: preserve command continuity if the outside world collapses. And tonight, that continuity is the target. Imagine you're here. The air is cold. The wind carries dust and diesel. Somewhere in the distance, a dog starts barking, then another. Above ground, the perimeter looks ordinary by design. Warehouse facades, low-profile access roads, utility structures made to disappear into the terrain. But underground, the facility extends several levels deep. Communications nodes, operation cells, secure sleeping quarters, emergency power, a protected war room linked to command elements across the country. If the leadership needs to survive the first strike and issue the next order, this is where it happens. Inside are more than 140 personnel: Revolutionary Guard security teams, communications technicians, duty officers, signal specialists, tunnel sentries, and a protected inner circle staff built around one name, Mojtaba Khamenei, presented here in this fictional scenario as the central node of an emergency wartime command chain. Not because the bunker is symbolic, because it's functional. Remove a symbol and the system keeps moving. Remove the nerve junction and the whole body hesitates. That is the calculation being made tonight. Now step back from the bunker and widen the map. This fictional operation unfolds against a very real strategic backdrop. The Persian Gulf crowded with surveillance aircraft, U.S. naval assets in regional waters, stealth fighters rotating through hardened bases, satellites passing overhead every few minutes, intelligence platforms drinking in emissions across hundreds of miles. In the real world, facilities like Al Udeid in Qatar, Al Dhafra in the UAE, carrier strike groups at sea, and long-range bombers farther out form a lattice of pressure and response. In our scenario, that lattice has been activated. Not publicly, not loudly, quietly, because the threat assessment coming in over the previous 6 hours was not about posturing. It was about imminent coordination. Intelligence fusion had flagged unusual movement between hardened Iranian communications sites, encrypted bursts from protected networks, convoy traffic into secondary access points, and the sudden activation of internal bunker protocols normally reserved for wartime leadership dispersal. Analysts looking at the pattern reached a brutal conclusion. This wasn't a drill, and it wasn't defensive. A protected command element was preparing to direct a broader regional strike package. That matters, because once protected leadership goes underground and starts issuing launch authority through redundant channels, the cost of waiting multiplies by the minute. From the enemy's perspective, now shift your view. This was supposed to be survival through concealment. They believed depth, secrecy, mobility, and hardened architecture would buy time. They believed multiple false sites had diluted targeting certainty. They believed internal security rings, air defense umbrellas, and urban terrain would force hesitation. Most of all, they believed no one would risk a surgical strike on a buried leadership node so close to a major population center unless the evidence was absolute. That belief becomes the flaw. Because there's a problem with their plan. Hardened bunkers are good at surviving explosives. They are far less effective at surviving information dominance. What they didn't account for was not just stealth aircraft, not just signals interception, not just overhead collection. It was system integration, thermal anomalies at disguised ventilation shafts, pattern of life analysis on maintenance convoys, ground-penetrating architectural modeling built from years of fragmentary observation, human source confirmation, even micro variations in power routing. Piece by piece, the invisible became visible.
to
They
threaten
thought the
ships in the
bunker
Red
was
Sea.
hidden.
It cost
was
over
being
$1
watched.
billion
And once that
and led to
realization locked
concerns
in,
about
the debate
depleting
ended.
U.S. munition
At
stockpiles.
2:21 a.m., the
$200
first
million
alert sequence
were
moves
spent
through
on
a
missiles in the
classified
first 3
operations
weeks of
floor
that operation.
hundreds of miles away.
The U.S. lost
Secure
7
doors closed.
MQ-9 Reaper
In
drones
screens
worth $30
shift
million
from surveillance
apiece,
to
and
execution
2
packages.
Fa-18
Joint
jets
planners
worth $50
confirm the
million
strike window.
each.
Electronic
CENTCOM
warfare
hit more than
timing is
1,000
synced to the
targets
second.
using
Air
these
corridors are
weapons,
deconflicted.
and yet the Houthis
Tanker tracks
survived
are
and are
adjusted.
now threatening
Quick
to disrupt
reaction rescue
global
assets
shipping
go on
by closing
silent
the Bab
standby.
el-Mandeb Strait.
Somewhere, a
Very
commander
similar to
gives
what
the
they're
kind
doing
of
in the
order
Strait
that
of Hormuz,
changes
Martha.
careers,
Okay,
governments,
we'll
and
see where it
history.
goes, Jennifer.
Less
Thank you
time
very
than your
much,
morning
Jennifer
commute.
Griffin.
Execute.
Be sure
You're there
to like
now.
and subscribe
The room
for
is
all
cold.
the Fox News
No one
latest
is
on
shouting.
YouTube and
That's
catch
what
full
makes it
shows
worse.
streaming now
Professionals
on
in
Fox
these moments do not look dramatic. They look focused. One officer tracks Iranian radar sectors. Another monitors civilian air traffic separation. Another watches feeds from overhead ISR. A targeteer zooms in on the bunker access geometry one last time. On another screen, the assault package, fictional in its specific composition, but built from real capability, pushes toward Tehran. 2 F-35As configured for deep penetration. 1 B-2 Spirit positioned for standoff bunker-busting support. Electronic attack support, degrading surveillance windows. MQ-9 and RQ-class ISR layers. Monitoring roads and reinforcement routes. A Special Operations Task Force, our fictional Delta Force element, already closer than anyone underground would imagine, inserted earlier to mark, confirm, and exploit after the initial breach effects. Could you make that call? Send men toward a buried command site under one of the most heavily defended political zones in the region, with minutes to get it right, with the entire escalation ladder waiting below? At 2:27 a.m., the hunt begins. The first move is not explosive. It's invisible. Electronic attack sweeps the outer defensive picture. Selected radar feeds distort. Communications latency appears in places it shouldn't. Internal security networks experience fractional delays, tiny enough to dismiss individually, catastrophic when combined. That's the nature of modern stalking. The predator does not announce itself. It strips the prey of awareness first. Then the sky opens. 2 precision-guided penetrators strike nearly simultaneously. Not the main chamber, not yet, but the access architecture. One impacts near a disguised logistics entrance, driving a column of concrete dust and shattered rebar into the night. The second hits a ventilation and emergency egress sector mapped months earlier through thermal signatures and maintenance patterns. Fire flashes. Shock waves roll across the hillside. Above-ground guard posts lose power. Cameras jitter, cut, and die. Underground? The first sensation is not sound. It's pressure. The walls flex. Ceiling dust rains down. Lights flicker red, then white, then red again. Men grab tables. Someone falls. Alarms start screaming through corridor speakers. Blast doors begin their programmed cycle. The internal security teams sprint toward choke points. Weapons up. Radios alive with overlapping orders. Each one thinking this is the main attack. It isn't. Now the countdown compresses. 4 seconds. That's all between first impact and second wave penetration. A heavier strike follows. Again, fictional in outcome, grounded in real concepts. A deep penetrator targets the outer shell above a secondary command shaft, not to vaporize the bunker outright, but to collapse geometry, sever movement, and force everyone inside into predictable routes. That's the trick. Not brute force. Or controlled confinement. Turn a buried fortress into a maze with only a few usable corridors, then own the corridors. Above, 1 F-35 banks away, infrared plume cutting the dark. Another holds just long enough to confirm effect. Overwatch platforms feed battle damage data in real time. The system integration is ruthless. Satellite, airborne ISR, strike aircraft, signals exploitation, ground force queuing. While the bunker's defenders are still figuring out what failed, the next layer is already moving. This is where the fictional Delta Force assault element comes in. Not a frontal charge, not Hollywood chaos. A precise exploitation package built around speed, suppression, and compartment isolation. Inserted to a concealed staging point earlier, the team now advances toward a damaged service entrance partially exposed by the opening strikes. Breachers move first. Cover elements peel out. Drone feeds whisper overhead. A combat controller updates timing with the air picture. Every man knows the same thing. Once they go underground, distance means nothing. 10 meters can become a death sentence. Imagine you're in that stack. Oxygen thick with dust, night vision washing the world in green, concrete fragments under your boots. Your heartbeat feels louder than the gunfire. Somewhere below, armed defenders are repositioning through smoke-filled corridors they thought they would never have to fight in. The entry blast punches through twisted steel and fractured concrete. Flash, overpressure, then movement. First corridor clear, second bend contested. A security team appears through haze and emergency strobes. 3 men, then 5 more behind them. Muzzle flashes strobe off painted walls. Suppressed rifles answer. Short bursts, controlled. No wasted motion. A fragmentation charge seals an adjacent service passage before reinforcements can emerge. One operator drops to a knee, sending a micro-drone farther down the tunnel. Feed confirms a split ahead. Left to communications, right to the protected core. And now the defenders understand what this is. Not a bombardment, not a warning, a hunt. Up top, more pressure is applied. ISR detects vehicle movement from a nearby security barracks. A pair of armed drones strike the convoy before it can merge onto the access road. On the wider air picture, Iranian response fighters scramble too late into a battle space already bent against them. Surface-to-air systems around the region try to illuminate fragments of the threat, but stealth, timing, and jamming keep the window narrow. This is not a fair exchange, not a battle, not a test, an execution of a kill chain. Inside the bunker, internal defense becomes fragmented by design. Communications are intermittent. One corridor hears, "Hold the core." Another hears, "Evacuate the principal." Another hears nothing at all. Pressure doors seal some personnel in. Others are forced into manual overrides. Smoke from ruptured wiring fills the lower access ramps. Backup lighting turns every chamber into a blood-red maze. Then comes the first major break. The fictional target package identifies a protected elevator shaft linking the inner living quarters to the command level. A breaching team bypasses the obvious entry and cuts in laterally through a maintenance artery exposed by structural damage. That's what the defenders didn't account for. They planned for assault from the doors. They did not plan for assault through the bones of the bunker itself. What they got wrong was assuming architecture would dictate the fight. At 2:34 a.m., just 13 minutes after execution authorization, the assault force reaches the inner security ring. This is the hardest part. The men waiting here are not surprised conscripts. They're selected protectors, better armed, better positioned, fighting for the one objective their entire mission exists to preserve. The hallway is narrow, reinforced, and pre-ranged. The defenders know every angle. For a moment, momentum stalls. Rounds chew concrete. But a shield operator takes impact. A flashbang rolls, detonates, filling the tunnel with white violence. Someone screams for a medic. Someone else calls the remaining distance to the core chamber. 6 meters, then 4. Could you keep moving? A wall charge blows an offset breach point beside the main defensive lane. Through that split-second opening, the assault team pours overwhelming fire and shock into the ring. One defender drops. Another tries to fall back through a coded door that no longer responds because the local control node was already disabled by the strike package. That's information dominance again. Not just knowing where the enemy is, knowing what he'll need before he needs it, then taking it away. At the same moment, outside the bunker, the broader counter-leadership operation escalates. Regional command, when having confirmed hostile wartime continuity preparations, authorizes systematic follow-on strikes, not against cities, not against civilians, but against the machine enabling further command and attack. This is the counterattack phase, and its scale dwarfs the opening assault. From the Gulf, destroyers and cruisers launch Tomahawk salvos against pre-selected military communications relays and hardened IRGC support facilities. From the air, additional stealth assets hit air defense coordination nodes. Cyber and electronic operations blind, spoof, and isolate. A submarine contributes standoff fire against production-linked infrastructure tied to missile sustainment. Long-range bombers queue in for secondary target suppression if escalation widens. Compare the numbers. 1 bunker, 1 protected leadership node. But behind it, dozens of connected facilities, relay sites, storage depots, redundant command posts, air defense sector hubs, uplink stations, transport choke points. The response is built not to punish, but to erase future capability. For every corridor the assault team clears underground, another part of the command web above ground goes dark. At 2:37 a.m., the inner chamber is breached. In this fictional scenario, the final protected room is smaller than expected. Not a grand hall, no cinematic throne room, just a hardened command suite with reinforced partitions, communications consoles, filtered air, emergency medical gear, and a cluster of stunned, exhausted staff caught between evacuation and denial. Some try to destroy devices, some freeze, some reach for weapons too late. Security men still standing fight to the end because that is what elite protective units do when the perimeter collapses around the principal. The room is secured in less than 90 seconds, less time than it takes to heat coffee. The leadership package is neutralized. Primary target confirmed down in this fictional scenario. Senior aides dead or incapacitated. Communications hardware seized or destroyed. Internal data modules tagged for rapid exploitation or demolition. A secondary fire begins in the server annex after a shaped charge tears through stacked equipment racks. Fans stop. Backup power coughs, then silence. Above ground, exfiltration begins under the shield of continuing regional strikes and deception. The assault force does not linger. That's another myth people get wrong. Elite raids are not won by staying. They are won by arriving first, hitting harder, and leaving before the battlefield can reset. Routes are pre-planned. Casualty contingencies are rehearsed. Aircraft are timed. If a man goes down, there are seconds to decide whether the mission bends or the man moves. Heart pounding, dust in your throat, every shadow a threat. This is real to the people inside it, even in fiction. Now shift back to the bigger picture. Minute 4, outer access points destroyed. Minute 11, internal security fragmented. Minute 16, inner ring reached. Minute 24, command chamber breached. Minute 42, exfiltration complete, and follow-on strikes still degrading the wider network. That timeline tells its own story. By sunrise, the battlefield is no longer a bunker. It is a broken command ecosystem. In our scenario, at least 19 connected military facilities across central Iran have been rendered non-functional or severely degraded through coordinated kinetic and non-kinetic effects. Missile coordination suffers, air defense coherence fractures, redundant leadership channels fail to re-establish in time. Units once awaiting orders begin improvising. Improvisation in wartime sounds flexible. Usually it means paralysis, and the casualty comparison is just as brutal. The attacking force absorbs losses, because operations like this are never clean, but retains combat cohesion and exits with mission completion. The defenders lose not just personnel, but protected expertise. Signal officers, security chiefs, continuity planners, node managers, liaison staff. In leadership warfare, those losses compound. Then you can replace a building faster than you can replace a trusted command circle under fire. What surprises many people is this: the deepest damage is psychological. Bunkers are supposed to reassure the people inside them. They are concrete promises that leadership can survive the first blow and continue the fight. But if a hidden command center can be found, isolated, breached, and stripped from the inside out, what else is vulnerable? Which site is next? Which convoy is mapped? Which alternate headquarters has already been tagged from above? Once doubt enters the protected class, every movement slows, every meeting relocates, every order gets checked twice. That delay kills momentum, and modern war punishes delay. This fictional scenario also reveals something else about future conflict. Victory is no longer just about bigger explosions. It's about connected awareness. The side that fuses sensors, stealth, cyber effects, electronic warfare, precision strike, and human assault into one fluid sequence doesn't just hit harder, it decides faster. While one side is still asking what happened, the other is already shaping what happens next. That's the lesson here. Not that bunkers are obsolete, not that leadership protection no longer matters. It does. Deeply. But hardened concrete without adaptive information, security is just an expensive tomb. Raw courage without networked awareness becomes prey. Numbers without coordination become noise. In this scenario, the fatal mistake wasn't building the bunker. It was believing the bunker alone could rewrite the balance between hunter and hunted. And think about the human layer for a second. Every person in that underground complex believed he was serving a system designed to outlast chaos. Every operator in the assault force knew failure meant isolation, capture, maybe death beneath a foreign capital. Every planner at a distant console understood that one misread image, one missed door, one delayed strike could turn a precise decapitation into a regional firestorm. Could you carry that weight? Could you trust technology enough to bet lives on it? Could you trust people enough to go underground after the bombs hit? That is why scenarios like this matter, because they force us to examine not just hardware, but judgment. Not just missiles, but timing. Not just bravery, but decision architecture. The future battlefield will belong to whoever sees first, understands first, and acts first, with enough discipline to keep speed from becoming recklessness. In our fictional story, the operation lasts 42 minutes. Less than a movie episode, less than a long gym session, less than the time most cities spend waking up. Yet in those 42 minutes, an entire command structure is cut apart from the outside in and the inside out. One hidden bunker, one leadership circle, one system that thought depth meant safety. It didn't. How does this change your view of modern warfare? Share your take. Subscribe to join the discussion.